Okay, this is CPLR 320. We're going to do the quizzer question. Then I'm going to read the actual CPLR out of the book. A defendant upon whom personal service of a summons and complaint has been made within the state has 20 days after service to appear in the action. Okay, so it says it right here. CPLR 320A provides that an appearance must be made by the defendant within 20 days after personal service in New York State. If service is made in any other manner, appearance must be made within 30 days of the date that the CPLR deems appearance complete. For example, with regard to nail and mail service under CPLR 3084, service is deemed complete 10 days after the proof of service is filed. Then defendant has 40 days after proof of service is filed to appear. Now I'm just gonna say up front what I had to look up, because reading through the CPLR is very hard. Like, it makes something so easy so difficult. I'm trying to get in this damn phone. Hold on, because I had to take a picture with my other phone just to make it very clear. So basically, the defendant has to appear. If you hand that document directly to the defendant, okay, he has 20 days to make his appearance, his or her appearance, right? This is going to go into substitute service right here. Exploring alternative substituted and nail and mail service, because that's what's referenced in this answer. So when direct delivery is not feasible, CPLR 308 offers flexible alternatives. So in other words, if you go to the person's house or place of business and they are not personally there, and you are not personally handing it to them, what CPLR 308 provides is alternative ways to serve the person, right? So substituted service. This method involves delivering documents for an appropriate individual at the defendant's location and mailing another copy to the same address. It enhances the likeliness of the defendant, the notice. I don't know, there's some like reflection of light. And then nail and mail service. As a last resort, this method involves attaching the notice to the defendant's last known address and mailing a copy. It's indirect, but shows efforts to notify. So basically, if you go somewhere and you hand it to someone else at the place where you're delivering, whether it's their place of business or their dwelling, you would also mail it as well. All right, so again, if you hand it to them directly, they have 20 days to make their appearance, defendant, within 20 days after personal service, right? You're putting it in the defendant's hand. If service is made in any other manner, appearance must be made within 30 days. So if you go there, you hand it to someone else and then mail a copy to the same place where you just handed it to somebody else, it's 30 days. Okay? Now, and then it goes on to say, of the date that the CPLR deems appearance complete. So now they're going to give you an example of a specific time where the CPLR deems appearance complete. For example, with nail and mail service under CPLR 3084, service is deemed complete 10 days after the proof of service is filed. So then defendant has 40 days after the proof of service is filed to appear. How does that 40 days come up? Because if you hand it to someone else other than the defendant, I'm just giving you this specific example. I'm looking for the defendant isn't there. I hand it to somebody else, and then I also mail it. So instead of now the defendant having 20 days to appear, now they have 30 because I didn't personally hand it to them. Okay? I handed it to someone else, and then since I handed it to someone else other than the defendant, I'm also going to mail it, right? Then I'm going to go bring my proof of service of how I served it to the clerk at the court. I'm gonna bring it there, and once I have 20 days to bring it to the clerk, right? Like, so let's say you go and you handed it first to the person and then you mailed it from the later thing. So the second thing I did, the last thing I did was mail it. From that day that I mail it, I have 20 days to file it with the county clerk. Okay? Then once I file it with the county clerk, 10 days from the day that I filed it with the county clerk, then it's considered service is complete. Okay, so you have the 30 days because you didn't directly serve it to the defendant, plus the 10 days for the action to be complete. That equals 40 days. So now the defendant has 40 days to appear instead of 20 days if I had handed it directly to them. Now, if you want to see this all laid out in the CPLR, I'm about to show it to you. Now, this is referencing 320A. But I got to tell you, I got stuck on 308 because this CPLR, excuse my French, is a real bitch. I can't tell you how long it took me to get to that point. It probably took me like 40 minutes to figure all this shit out. This is like no joke. And I think I figured it out. And I had to reference something outside the CPLR to give me some clarity. So this is referencing 320A, defendant's appearance, right? Because once he's served, it's all about the appearance. He has 20 days to appear if he's personally served. Requirement of appearance. The defendant appears by serving an answer or a notice of appearance. That was one of the quizzer questions. So the defendant appears by serving an answer or a notice of appearance, or by making a motion which has the effect of extending the time to answer. So basically, if he needs more time, he can file a motion which has effect of extending the time to answer, which will give him more time to answer. An appearance shall be made within 20 days after service of the summons, except that if the summons was served on the defendant by delivering it to an official, in other words, not the defendant, to somebody else of the state authorized to receive service in his behalf, or if it was served pursuant to section 303, subdivision 2, 3, 4, or 5 of section 308, which I'm going to go into, or because that's the one that brings up the nail and mail, that the example was used in the quizzer, or sections 313, 314, or 315. What the hell were those again? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Anyhow, the appearance shall be made within 30 days after service is complete. If the complaint is not served with the summons, the time to appear may be extended as provided in subdivision B of section 3012. Okay. So some of the references that are made in 320A is 308, which I'm going to go into more depth, but just so you know what 313, 314, or 315 are. This is service. 313 is service without the state giving personal jurisdiction. I'm not going to go deep into these because I want to go over the example of the nail and mail. 314, service without the state not giving personal jurisdiction in certain actions. 315 is service by publication authorized. So I'm assuming that you can't find this mother effer, and so now they're going to just put that shit, they're going to publicize it to try to get this person serve it by publication. They're going to announce it in the damn papers because they're trying to track this defendant down. So we're going to go, and again, that's just my assumption. I am not a professional teacher. I'm just figuring this out just like you. So let's go to 308 because this is the one that's used in the example. And the reason that I had such a difficult time is because it made it seem like personal service was all of the above. It wasn't just handing it directly to the defendant. So that's why I was getting thrown off. So personal service, this is 308, CPLR 308, personal service upon a natural person. Personal service upon a natural person shall be made by any of the following methods. 1, by delivering the summons within the state to the person to be served. That's the defendant. Or 2, by delivering the summons within the state to a person of suitable age and discretion at the actual place of business, dwelling place, or usual place of abode of the person to be served, and either by mailing the summons to the person to be served at his or her last known residence, or by mailing the summons by first class mail to the person to be served at his or her actual place of business in an envelope. Now, this envelope can't give away the fact that inside the envelope is this legal, person being served. This is the right to privacy for the defendant. So just keep in mind regarding 308 personal service, ain't no shit gonna be up on top of that envelope indicating that, whatever it is. So in an envelope bearing the legend personal and confidential, and not indicating on the outside thereof by the return address or otherwise that the communication is from an attorney or concerns an action against the person to be served, such delivery and mailing to be effected within 20 days of each other. Proof of such service shall be filed with the clerk of the court designated in the summons within 20 days of either such delivering or mail. Remember, this is number 2 is about delivering it not directly to the defendant, but to somebody that can accept it in place of the defendant, right? It says it to a person of suitable age and discretion at the actual place of business, yada, yada, yada. Within 20 days, so, right, of either such delivery or mailing, whichever is affected later. There it is, whichever is affected later. Remember we talked about that earlier? So if you hand it to someone first and then you mail it, you would do it from the date of the mailing. If you did it on the same day, then it would be that day. So let's say you serve the person on not the defendant, but the person at the defendant's abode who could accept it. You served them on July 20th, and then you mailed it on the 21st. You'd have 20 days from the 21st to file it with the county court. Okay? So the later of the two. Service shall be complete, here it is, 10 days after such filing. Proof of service shall identify, okay, so once you file it with the county court, service shall be, county clerk, service shall be complete 10 days after such filing. Proof of service shall identify such person suitable age and discretion and state the date, time, and place of service, except in matrimonial actions where service hereunder may be made pursuant to an order made in accordance with the provisions of subdivision A of section 232 of the domestic relations law. So that's, just remember that matrimonial is an exception to this rule. All right, we're going to jump to 4 because that is what is talked about here. 3084, service is deemed complete 10 days after proof of service is filed, then defendant has 40 days after proof, So 4 pretty much just reiterates what 2 went over, where service under paragraphs 1 and 2 cannot be made with due diligence by affixing the summons to the door of either the actual place of business dwelling or usual place of abode within the state of the person to be served, and by either mailing the summons to such person at his or her last known residence, or by mailing the summons by first class mail to the person to be served at his or her actual place of business in an envelope bearing, and it goes in the thing about, confidential, whatever. But here's the thing that was confusing the living hell out of me. Because it's referencing not just 1, it's referencing 1 and 2. And 2 is all about serving it to someone else. And that's why I literally had to go outside the CPLR and try to find out what the hell this was talking about. What's considered alternative substitute ways, measures of serving. Because this shit does not make sense unless I am not understanding this correctly. So, but it makes sense what was said in that little blurb that I read you. It makes total sense when I read that, but when I read the CPLR, it makes no effing sense. And this just goes on. It's literally just reiterating what we read in paragraph 2 about affixing. So now it's going into such affixing and mailing to be affected 20 days. It's basically just repeating everything that was in 2 and reiterating it. Here under maybe pursuant to an order made in accordance with provisions. Is this the matrimonial part? Yeah, matrimony. So literally 4 is like just basically saying, you know, where service under paragraphs 1 and 2 cannot be made with due diligence. So, and then it just goes on to literally repeat word for word everything in 308.2. And that's it. That's the CPLR reading of that question. But I gotta tell you, it took me 40 minutes to figure that shit out. But there's a short explanation in the beginning of this video, and then if you want to actually see and go over and hear the CPLR and see how it's written, I've gone over that as well. So if anybody has any comments on this, leave them in the comment section. Let me know if you have any feedback. And that is that question regarding CPLR 320. CPLR 320, referencing CPLR 308, 313, 314, and 315 as well. Have a good night.